call this special meeting of the Waco City Council on January 9th, 2024 to order at 1:36 p.m. Would you please join me for a moment of silence? Thank you. We provide an opportunity for the public to address the City Council on the items on our agenda today. On items other than public hearings, which we don't have any speakers, will be allotted 1 3-minute presentation. Is there anyone here to speak, any member of the public here to speak on any of the agenda items on our agenda today? If not, the first item on the agenda is work session 2024-001. And I'm going to turn this over to Tom Balk to lead us into this.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Thank you so much. I'm Tom Balk, Director of Strategic Initiatives for the City Manager's Office. And as you know, we've been engaged in a sprint to pursue a very exciting project for our downtown. In this process, we've initiated, starting October 13th, a request for qualifications process that has had a robust response. And so that's beyond our wildest dreams. We are certainly thrilled for that, but there's a lot of work that goes with that. So what we are here to do today is continue that process and get your feedback. But first, one of the interesting and exciting developments that happened along the way. We had our interviews last week, and one of the teams that participated and engaged in that interview process, but ultimately withdrew in that presentation, was a team that we were watching with interest that you all have certainly been familiar with their work, the team from Oxbow Development Group, responsible for the Pearl in San Antonio. And what was notable and remarkable about the presentation that they shared with us it was a very intimate introduction to what cities like ourselves have in front of them, the opportunity and what that means and how that goes deeper than the nuts and bolts of an economic development opportunity. And so the team was very well represented by Sean Hatter and Kristen on Friday of last week, but today we have the pleasure of being spoken with by Bill Schoen, the CEO, the man who's been with it, employee number 1, is that correct? And so I'm going to turn it over to him to take us through that same story about what Oxbow did to make sure that the Pearl project was successful and what similar projects might consider as they move forward.
And Tom, can I just ask you a question? As Bill come on up, my understanding is Oxbow's not, that they were, had thrown their name in the ring, but as of now, that's not on the table. Correct. Is that right? Great.
That's correct. That's correct. And they will cover that in this presentation a little bit. But it's an interesting discussion and a great story, and we definitely wanted council to be involved in hearing that. So
perfect.
Thanks very much.
Bill.
Sure. And Bill, if you'd prefer to sit, you can.
Actually, this is fine.
Great.
Actually, I was thinking about it, and I'm not sure I've ever spoken sitting down, so it's a little more comfortable with this. Yeah, as was mentioned, and by the way, Bill Schoen, CEO of Oxbow Development Group in San Antonio. How do I make this work, y'all?
I'm happy to be your keys guy if that's not working.
You want me to sit? Maybe I can sit there and do it. Or you want me to just ask you to advance? No, that one's not working either.
Ryan, am I doing it wrong? Oh,
nope.
There we go.
So just real quick background, and we'll get into what we're talking about with the Pearl, and this background story is important. We are a subsidiary of Silver Ventures, which is a company that was started in 1995 when Pace Pecani sauce sold to Campbell's Soup. Silver Ventures, then they owned several food companies, etc. And I was with another real estate company at the time, and they were our equity partner on the Westin Hotel in San Antonio. During the process of, let me back up and say, during the process of working on so here's the deal. Your introduction confused our presentation, so now I'm a little sideways.
I apologize.
So let me back up and tell you who we are, and then I'll tell you how we got there instead. Oxbow Development Group, subsidiary of Silver Ventures, is the real estate company that handles things at Silver Ventures. And I think what we need to talk about today is the reason we were invited to speak today is because we are different than most from a real estate development perspective. We are a values-based, vision-based real estate developer. This vision statement that you see on the screen, Oxbow is the groundbreaking leader of urban development through bringing soul to place to enrich people's lives for generations. That, so often there's vision statements that are plastered on a wall and people, it sits there or else it sits on a shelf and it's dusted off, but it isn't meaningful. In this case, this is who we are, how we do it, and why we do it. And we really, truly, every single member of our organization, and there are 19 of us, believe in this. And this is how we go through our everyday life. We have these things that we call groundbreakers that are what we also will refer to as our superpowers. How we think differently than many others. Not all others, but many others. And you'll notice that the word always is used in every single statement. It's because we mean it. We always give beauty the opportunity to thrive in everything that we do. We always create generous environments. And that word generosity is really important because we believe that by being generous, it's counterintuitive. We believe that by being generous, it has incredible reward on the backside. But we don't do it for the reward, we do it because we believe that generosity is important. We always transform the mundane into unexpected delight. We always are rooted in the values, heritage, and characteristics of our different locations. And as a result of all that, those might sound like, okay, this is all, crazy stuff, rainbows and unicorns. We believe, however, that because we do all that stuff, we create outsized financial return to ourselves and our clients. And we'll talk about that some more and how it's been proven up. And as far as our process, and I really encourage you guys as you go through this, whether we play a role or not, I really encourage the city staff, city council, leadership to think about this process because it's proven itself to be so powerful for us. And that is, we always start with a vision. And we call it a design statement, but it's truly a vision. And when we talk about vision, there's something to be underscored here as you guys embark on this process. We get real clear on what we want. Now think about this for a second. It's what do you really, really want? And that may be one of the hardest questions for any of us to answer with regard to ourselves or with regard to anything else, because we immediately go to, well, that's not possible. We can never do that. That'll never happen here. We start with, what do we really, really want? And we'll talk about Pearl in a second. One of the things that we talked about in the beginning, which sounded outrageous when we started that deal 20 years ago, we want to transform the culinary landscape in San Antonio. Pretty outrageous. Well, we've done it, and we'll talk about that. We got real clear on what it is that we really, really want, and then said, okay, what's missing for that to happen? We don't start with what is possible, what does the market say we should do, what do our consultants say is possible. We start with what do we really, really want? And I would encourage Waco to ask itself in its most aspirational way, what do we really, really want here? And it's not, well, we want a convention center and no, what do you really want? My guess is, one place to start, I'm just going to throw this out. What we want is for the central city of Waco to be one of the most dynamic central cities in the country. That sounds crazy. But sometimes crazy has incredible power when you start acting into it. We then find stakeholders and get their input. We find consultants that believe in our vision. And it all starts with the vision. And then we start to bring it together with the right people and the right resources, et cetera, and then we start attacking the missings. Always leading with thoughtfulness and generosity, and always coming at it, and this is another stickler. It's human nature. We start with, there's no way that things should be. One example of that is we were building a Class A office tower near Pearl, and we had a developer partner in that one because we hadn't done it before. And the developer partner says, you have to have a central chilling plant. And we said, well, yeah, but that's not what we want. What we want is geothermal wells and a VRF. We want to have the most environmentally sustainable building in the region. Well, it's not done that way. Those words are like fingernails on a chalkboard to us. Now, granted, we built the building. It's incredibly sustainable. The system costs less than the central chilling plant would have. Because we decided that's what we wanted to do, and then we started acting into it. The devil's in the details, and patience is, if you're going to create a vision and then remain true to that vision, you've got to be patient through it. There's going to be so many times that the world is going to tell you it can't be done. And you just got to stare the world in the face and say, yeah, but we're going to do it. And then, guess what? All of a sudden, things start showing up, and you figure out how to do it. Pearl is, so this is in, what was it, Shawnee? 2001, 2002, Pearl Brewery, which had been the largest employer in San Antonio for years. It was founded in 1887, brewed up until 2001. It shut down. I went and looked at it when I was with another real estate development company. I went and looked at it, and I just went, oh my God, this place is a mess. Incredible environmental issues, lead paint, asbestos, it flooded, it had a horrible crime issue. It had a place right adjacent to it that got 200 police calls on average per year. It was just horrible. And so it was easy for us to say, yeah, this is not a deal for us. Our visionary owner, Kit Goldsberry at Silver Ventures, called me because we had done a deal in real estate together, and he called me and said, I'm looking at the Pearl, would you come visit me and talk to me about it? I said, great, Kit, this is going to be an easy, quick meeting. And we met right in the middle of that asphalt sea that's there. And I ticked off all the things I just shared with y'all, why it was a terrible idea. And about 2 weeks later, he called me up and said, man, thank you so much for meeting me there. I've put the property under contract. And I share that with you because I was looking at it from a conventional real estate perspective. He was looking at it from a visionary perspective. He was seeing things that I couldn't see at the time. And what he saw is a place that was going to change the culinary landscape of San Antonio. He saw a place that was going to absolutely catalyze the redevelopment of the area, and it has. There's 6,000 or 7,000 new multifamily residential units around Pearl now. He saw a place that was going to transform the lives of young Latinos who were in the back of the kitchens and make them chefs and restaurant owners and bring them up to the front. And we created this vision. That I love this slide because it's kind of watercolor and it helps you see, okay, a vision doesn't have to be that clear. And it was about creating a place for San Antonians. It was about transforming lives. It was about so much more than a real estate development. And this is probably a good place to stop and tell a story because it has something to do with a shift in thinking from a council and city staff perspective. About 3 years into, long story short, I moved from Hickson over to Silver Ventures. And I was there for about 3 years, and I was miserable because I was telling Kit all the things that he needed to know from a market perspective, from et cetera, et cetera. And he wasn't listening to me, and I thought I wasn't respected. And I was talking to my executive coach about it, and he just smiled and said, Bill, you don't have any idea how much fun you could be having. He said, you're playing football. He said, you're telling Kit all about touchdowns and first downs and field goals and holding penalties, and all he wants to do is play baseball. He's playing a completely different game than you, and you have a choice of either going to find another football team like you had at Hickson or learning how to play baseball. And now, that was really hard to digest, but it's really important as you guys embark on this journey is what game are you going to play? Are you going to play that crazy aspirational game that takes you places that could potentially, vault this city into the future? Or are you going to play football like I was playing? I went to Kit, and by the way, part of this story is, and it has outrageous financial value at the end. That's the counterintuitive aspect of all this, is I went to Kit and I said, I've been told that you're playing a different game than me, and I thought I was advising you from a real estate perspective. And I said, how are you going to measure our success? And he started ticking off all the things that I mentioned. Whether we can catalyze the redevelopment of the area, whether we can change young Hispanics' lives, whether we can make San Antonio into a culinary destination, and I said, what about the money? What about the returns on investment? He said, that's your job. You'll figure that out. But that's not what we're doing. Please hear me. It's not that the money is unimportant, because absolutely, if it's not financially sustainable, it won't make sense. It's that the money didn't lead the conversation. The conversation was always led by vision. And so we got into, and this is, you see the fuzzy picture. We remained absolutely unwaveringly committed to that vision. It's been 19 years now, and this is what it is today. We have the only 5-star hotel in the state of Texas in Hotel Emma, voted by Travel and Leisure, I think it was this year, or last year in 23, as the #1 destination in luxury hotel in the country. We have, this is another funny story. When I was in the football playing days, before I learned how to play baseball, I told Kit said I wanted it to be all about food, and I said, we can support 4 restaurants. With parking and cannibalization, we can support. He said, we got to have at least 8. And I said, no, that will never work. We have 28 food and beverage operations, all with locally owned chefs and operators. And we have 3, 4, 5 more in pre-development. So we'll have 33 food and beverage operations, and they are very successful. I mentioned Hotel Emma. Another example of kind of going against what the world says is possible. We built a luxury multifamily rental project at the time when San Antonio the highest rents in San Antonio multifamily are about $1.90 a foot. We had to get $2.60 to make it pencil. It's 100% leased. It gets over $4 a foot. You can't drag the people out of the place. It's become this incredible community. Again, starting from a place of vision, we visited a lot of places and said, you know what, all these multifamily places, they feel like multifamily places. Let's create a place that feels like a home, a real true home. When you're on the ground floor, it has a library and a living room and a kitchen. It feels like a home, not like a multifamily common area. And like I said, you can't drag the folks out of there, thankfully, knock on wood. Several hundred multifamily projects, all of which on the Class A side, not the luxury side, have the highest rents in the city, highest occupancies in the city. We just finished, in the teeth of COVID, 110,000 square foot office building. It's 96% leased. We're almost at 100%. Again, knock on wood, at a time when office buildings are struggling. We've won all sorts of awards, national awards. I think the one we're most proud of is that ULI Global Award for Excellence. It basically points, and when it says global, I think we were one of a half a dozen projects in the world to be honored that way in 2017. Some key takeaways, and then I really want you guys to have time for questions, is what I underscored earlier, to underscore what I said earlier, is to stay true to your vision. Let the vision lead and don't waver from it. Yeah, there's going to be, and by the way, when I say don't waver from it unless it's an intentional waiver. There may be times you're going to find a hurdle, or you're going to find something that tells you, you know what, we need to adjust, we need to change something. Absent that, I mean, I can't tell you how many times that it happened. I was sharing with Bradley, it happened yesterday in a design meeting in Dallas, where we were going down the road with design alterations on a potential hotel room, and God bless one of our consultants, she raised up her voice and said, that's not true to the vision. And we all kind of caught ourselves and went, you know what, it's not, we can't do that. We're actually trying to save money in a certain way, basically the cost of a television, and it would have not been true to the vision for this hotel. And it helps us in so many ways. Another key takeaway is that beauty, truly, we believe that beauty is one of the most generous things that you can give. And beauty comes in all forms. Generous spaces, beautiful spaces, thoughtful attention to detail. When folks feel like you have thought of them and taken care of everything. And the last one is kind of what I've been touching on, and this is the hardest part, especially in the public environment, is take on what you believe to be is impossible. Because, and the world will look at you and they'll raise their eyes and go, why? What? And if you know you're doing something right, if the world looks at you like you're crazy. At least that's how we feel. Is when the world, they go, you're gonna do what? Yeah, we're gonna make San Antonio a culinary destination. Yeah, sure. Well, it happened. And I think, I'm not sure, but I think, then the last part is what became real clear to us as we were looking at this and considering being part of something here is all of those colored parcels are either in construction or pre-development, every single one that we are doing. We have a small team and our pipeline is full. We are absolutely at capacity, and we went, we don't have the capacity to, as much as by the way, we're here today because we are so compelled by the vision of the city and the idea that the city wants to do something extraordinary. The city leaders that we've met are just amazing. The canvas upon which you have to paint is incredible. I mean, there's an opportunity here that's just amazing. And so that's why we're here. But we have to acknowledge to ourselves, we don't have the capacity to do it. So, so that's, and this is some of the pretty pictures of some, by the way, the upper left corner, we have taken an old building built in 1894, an old stable, and converted it to a music hall. Our soft grand opening is day after tomorrow. It's going to be transformative. It holds 1,000 people. It's going to be really neat, and you'll be hearing about it. And so that's the end of it. The question is, we are compelled by what's going on here. Is there a role for us to play? We don't know. We're open to any possibility. We're open to being a member of a team. We're open to working with the city. We're open to, if we'd be disappointed, but we're open to not doing anything at all if that's the right thing for the city. And I guess with that, I'd ask any questions besides, why are you so stupid?
Any questions for Bill?
I just thank you for coming today and providing this presentation. That was a great project in Pearl. You've done a lot of other great projects as well. Just generally, I know we got a lot of other things going on here, but what generally similarities do you see in how this downtown Waco project could be successful and the project that you've just been talking about?
The place that you have with the Brazos River right there, and the land that you have, the canvas that you have to work with the land, is you have enough there that you can create a critical, with being purposeful and thoughtful, you can truly create a critical mass of Central City. The idea that you're already working on the idea of a minor league ball field. I think sports facilities in downtown central cities, and you see examples of it all over the country. They're really, really, they just energize a city. And so you're already a step up on that. It's mainly the setting. You have this huge, relatively huge, if you think about it from Central City perspective, downtown perspective, land opportunity right on the Brazos River with the bridges coming to it. The physical setting is just ideal. And so it's how you execute on it. Yeah, and now what you don't have is, we had some really beautiful old 1890s buildings to work with at Pearl. You don't have that, but, acknowledge that and work around it.
Thanks.
Yeah, in terms of the Pearl project, I've been there a few times, took my family there a few months ago, beautiful, amazing. What I don't know as a policymaker and council member here in Waco is to what levels of partnership did you have with your local government entities, with ISDs, municipality, county, and what can we take away from that? How involved were they?
Pearl was an extremely challenging project, and we could not have done it without strong partnership from the county, the city, the Historic Preservation Office, the development departments. They were incredible partners with us. And I'll give you 2 or 3 examples of that. The property flooded, and it flooded horribly, and the floodwaters all came from Fort Sam Houston, which is upstream of Pearl. We were able to work on a public-private partnership with the city to handle the drainage projects. It was about a $4.5–5 million drainage pipeline that captured the waters coming off of Fort Sam, brought them under US 281 highway, brought them through Pearl and dumped them in the San Antonio River. The city allowed us to do the work, to do the planning, to handle the construction. And because 94 or 96% of the water was upstream, they paid for 94 or 96% of the cost. That was huge for us, because without that, we were at a standstill. There's a thing called infill development zone zoning, IDZ zoning. I don't know if you have it here in Waco. The city had it on the books but had never used it. And we came to them and said, okay, let's be the first ones to pioneer with this. It has no parking requirements. It has relatively no setback lines, no height requirements, although there was an overlay that did have some height restrictions on us. But they partnered with us to craft a zoning that would really work with this complex campus that we had. We needed to privatize the streets so that we could control them and animate them, when we have festivals, etc. The city changed the zoning code to allow for that. Our historic preservation officer was incredible. She could have made it horrible for us because these buildings were built in the 1800s. However, we would say, hey, okay, this is what we intend to do, and there would be give and take. By the way, we didn't always agree, but it was a true partnership in every sense of the word. There'd be give and take, and we would find the common ground and move forward. There were some economic incentives especially on the multifamily, from both the city and the county. What am I leaving out, Sean? Is that it? Yeah. So again, incredible, not always agreeing. That's real important to state. It's not like they bent over. They would stand their ground, and we would then find common ground.
First of all, thank you guys for making the trip up and taking time to give us an inside look to the work that you did and continue to do, and how it relates to what we're looking to get done here in Waco. And I really can't say thank you enough for, being forthright in acknowledging that this was outside of your capacity at the moment to take on what we are looking to do, but still finding time and finding the availability to come up here and have us ask you questions. So thank you for that. I wanted to ask about when you were looking at the Pearl District specifically, and I know you guys have done so much more. I know, and you didn't touch on this, but there is a lot of connectivity in the outside projects other than the Pearl District that you guys have done, that you have worked to sort of interweave and make connected so that people can get to one and the other. Could you talk a little bit more about that and the intentionality around trying to make sure all the projects you guys do are connected and sort of flow within one another?
It's interesting that you asked that. We're working on even enhancing the connectivity today with additional bridges, sidewalks, etc. One of and this may feel counterintuitive as well, but one of the approaches that we took when we started this was that if we're going to catalyze the redevelopment of the area, we've got to do what is in the best interest of the entire area, not just in our own best interest. And so we literally would help other technically competing developers. We'd help them with their entitlements. We'd help them with their drainage issues. We would work with them side by side with them on city connectivity issues, whether it was roads, sidewalks, the Riverwalk, the extension of the Riverwalk up to Pearl and beyond. It's literally been an ongoing conversation with city and neighbors about how can we enhance and increase connectivity. I'm not sure if that answers your question. But
Yeah, and I'll add another one. Do you think that any of the projects, whether they're yours specific or ones that you've helped out with, would see the success that they're seeing without the intentionality of that connectivity?
No.
Yeah.
No, that was really important. It was, and we believe that their success, again, our parent company, their vision is to transform San Antonio. And so, we're a subsidiary. We serve them as they're building their development subsidiary. And so, so we saw it on maybe with a broader lens than most. And that is, everybody's going to win in this one. If we can raise the level of everything in the city, it just makes us more successful.
That's fantastic. Thanks. I assumed as much, just kind of wanted to hear it. So
Yeah.
thanks for that.
Thank you all for coming and sharing this information with us. We appreciate the honesty and transparency and knowing when to say when. I've been to the Pearl and several times and absolutely enjoy how it feels. But I want to go back historically to when you looked at it at first and you were talking about the neighborhood and you were talking about the community. So making this kind of change, even though that was a commercial space, it was one of those things, but the areas that were around it, how did that change with the redevelopment of the Pearl?
That's a great question, by the way, and it probably, you might be touching on what often is referred to as gentrification. The neighborhood has tons of residential around it, and it's very modest residential. And as we, in the 19 years that we've been through this process, as we started to create more value in the neighborhood, tax values went up, and ad valorem taxes went up. And we are, this is such a touchy subject for us because we absolutely believe in their strength and diversity in the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, we don't set tax policy. So we went to our state representative and said, hey, help us change tax policy. So because half of the taxes are school district taxes, and those can't be touched without state authorization. And we went and said, okay, let's go and let's put a bill before the state that can freeze taxes in areas like this that are just rapidly increasing values. We failed in that endeavor. I don't know what to say other than we still believe, and this is a really touchy subject because part of the issue there is these houses that were worth maybe $50,000 are worth, 5 or 6 times that. That's a good thing, right? Well, not necessarily to someone who lives there and who can't afford to pay the taxes on a $300,000 house. But, we have been trying to work with the community for some solutions and have been unsuccessful. Does that touch on what you were asking? Okay.
Thank you. I mean, we understand the process of what our policy changes and what our transformational changes, how they will impact our community, but we cannot not do anything. So we all walk a very fine line of advancing our community because if it doesn't grow, it dies. But with doing that in a way that doesn't hinder or harm the people we're doing it for. Mm-hmm. So I was just hoping that you had a solution.
Let me tell you, if I did. I will share with you, every time the gentrification word is used, it hurts because it's like we've spent 2 decades trying to make this San Antonio better and we're being criticized for it. It hurts. It hurts. Now, in that regard, there's another aspect to touch on, and that is all the public spaces at Pearl are free and they're non-transactional. Everyone is invited to be there. They don't need to bring a checkbook or a charge card. And you often see moms come with an ice chest on wheels and their children, and they'll spend all day there, not spending a penny. And we love that because that gives the place life. And that's very intentional. We're very intentional in that way. So the things that we can address, I think we have.
Any other questions or comments? I think your project speaks, so I was gonna say for itself, but it speaks volumes for intentionality and thoughtfulness to culture and place. It really is, as you mentioned, just such a signpost for how excellent development that speaks to a place. When you're in the Pearl District, you know you're in San Antonio, Texas, and it feels and looks and smells like you're in San Antonio, Texas, and it's beautiful and it's excellent. And I know that is there's been a lot of good information that has been delivered to us today. So really appreciative of you being here and look forward to continued conversations about partnership and what that can look like. So
Great.
appreciate you guys so much.
Thank you very much. Good luck.
Thanks. Next, we have work session 2024-002. And again, I believe Tom is going to lead us through this.
I'm happy to introduce the next segment of the special meeting today with just some thank yous first, and then I'll do some introductory remarks about what we're about to see, and then I'll introduce the team. So first, thank you, Bill, Sean. Really appreciate you guys for walking us through that and sharing that. As you can see, the clear reason that we brought this to you because it echoes a lot of the mission as we've understood it so far. So we're looking to maximize the win for the community and include everyone in that winning stake. So thank you for sharing the wisdom in that regard. The next segment, the work session 2024-002, takes us into our 4 finalist presentations. And this is the outcome. Obviously, we started in October to advertise this message to the world, looking for partners in the development. And by December 7th, we received 11 submissions, and all very strong. And so we've worked with a solid team of senior city staff. We had probably the biggest scoring panel we've ever seen. And we successfully narrowed that from 11 to 8 for interviews. And through those interviews last week, there are 4 distinct looks that we definitely wanted to bring forward for conversation today to get your remarks, feedback, and guidance to help us come back with a final recommendation. And so with that as our context here, I want to go ahead and introduce our first team, invite them to come up here. It's going to be Hunt Development Group and partners, led by Rodney Moss. And format-wise, I just want to kind of explain what we're sticking to today. We've got 30 minutes for prepared presentation for each team. We'll have a timer here so they can self-monitor their progress. And then after 30 minutes of taking us through the slides, we'll open that up for the same question-answer discussion format that we just engaged in with Oxbow. So for each team, we'll afford that, and there will be breaks throughout the day as well as dinner for y'all at a later point as well. So we will manage this as responsibly and thoughtfully as we can, but please let us know if you have any needs. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Rodney Moss from Hunt Development Group.
Does this work?
Yes.
You should have before you a placemat with the team org chart and the thumbnails, yes, of the 16 people that presented last Friday. So we've had to cull that down a little bit to 4, but you can see the team names on the front slide there. Some of those might be recognizable and some not, but I just want to say, and I hope this is not a theme that carries through, we at Hunt believe we also are unique. We are, if you would think about what Oxbow just said, sort of a right brain to a vision of a mixed-use development, we're the left brain partner of government. We have all of these relationships with specialty developers that may have the secret sauce for the certain type of asset or the certain community, and we bring those in as partners at the right time for the right asset. But in terms of that master plan, that master fiduciary of taxpayer dollars, There aren't many, if any, developers that are wired like we are. We have developed over $100 billion worth of civic assets for federal and local government, from the new storm sewer system in London, $6 billion, to hospitals in Canada, to courthouses, to Travis County Courthouse in downtown Austin. Our higher purpose is to be that civic developer, to deliver critical infrastructure, critical civic assets as an extension of staff with total trust and transparency as a fiduciary. Our core philosophy is the right people with the right process equals, equipped with the right information, gets the right results. We believe that if we are that fiduciary with total trust and transparency and make the business case for whatever gets done, that the right results will be, the business case will be there for whatever you decide to do from a development standpoint. Now, we have, that's the ballpark we developed in downtown El Paso, totally transformed downtown El Paso we developed with Paul Foster in partnership with the city, very similar to what the vision is here. Over 30 years of my career and purely focused on developing civic assets, there's a book that I highly recommend. It's called How Big Things Get Done. We talked to staff about it on Friday, but that book synthesizes so much of what I know about this business. And that first quote there, projects don't go wrong, they start wrong. What we see over and over again is that master developed projects started off in silos, with government doing their thing and private development doing another thing, and that siloed lack of integration, lack of understanding, lack of communication, lack of whatever it is, doesn't create the optimum outcomes. And that's what we're passionate about. Now, the first topic that the SOQ asked us to speak to was how we're different. So we assembled this team with a very strategic, ideal combination of both the local knowledge and the world-class expertise in design, finance, operations of each of these asset types. We've brought the best in the world, in most cases, to Waco for this, but we also know that we have to understand Waco and have to have that local knowledge and history and relationships to actually make that world-class expertise valuable. The other differentiator is we're the leader in Texas P3s. Our team has firsthand experience in virtually every major P3 transaction closed in the state. It's not just Hunt. We have, for example, Winstead as our project counsel. Winstead has been across from me many times and has been advisory to the public owner in almost all of the transactions that have been done. Winstead has chosen to join our team because they share our purpose. They understand that we're not like the right brain, if that makes sense. We have the same interests that they do, and we actually make them better in what we do. We have Petty and Associates, who has represented over 100 cities across Texas in creating special districts and tax capture mechanisms in the most strategic way. Also, they don't represent developers, they represent government, but they understand that sort of mindset that we have in that shared purpose. We also have ASM Global, the largest operator of public assembly and venues like we're trying to do, performing arts venues in the world. They have 19 in Texas. They understand what works in Texas. They understand how to operate these things efficiently to maximize revenue. Again, they don't partner with the developers much, but in this case, they made the exception because they understand Hunt and who we are. With respect to the stadium, we believe we have standalone credentials. We're the only team with deep experience in developing, financing, operating, and owning professional sport franchises in this space. We have teamed up with Hardball Capital, whom we've known for over a decade, and we have a lot of mutual trust and respect with Hardball. And again, we think we make each other better. So that's the right people, right process. So much of what we do, again, projects don't go wrong, they start wrong. We create this alignment around the goals and objectives, similar to what Oxbow was talking about, understood at the outset. But in that respect, we bring task teams of both outside consultants, our internal people, and city staff in 4 different task teams: technical, legal, finance, and public relations. And we have a steering committee that manages all of those, that are all typically 5 people on that committee, 3 of which will be senior leadership from the city. And together we're managing these task teams to make sure that the process and the pre-development stays on course and is achieving the outcomes that are expected. What's most important for City Council is that there are milestones for decisions about moving forward. And each one of those milestones will have a clear understanding of the business case and why we're doing what we're doing before moving forward. So this is a complex graphic of the process. But as you can see at the bottom, there are 6 civic projects that we see here, each with their own project teams, capital stack, and schedule. And some of them have different interdependencies. But the task teams overlay across those 6 projects in a way that breaks down a lot of this silo mentality that happens traditionally on complex civic projects like this. The tools these task teams have, it's a detailed risk register, it's a detailed financial model showing how everything works financially, it is a detailed schedule, and a detailed PR and communications plan. We're going to talk later about, it's a little bit more of that left brain thing. So much about what makes these projects successful is the public engagement and the PR. The timeline, we're told, is January 16th to start. We're ready to hit the ground running. We've got the team ready to go. And the destination is basically this development overlay, this framework that identifies the highest and best use of every parcel, when it's going to get done, how it's going to get done, and then each project will take its own course after that. So the second topic was to ask us to expand on our thoughts and needs to addressing missing pieces. And the quote is, "First hire a master builder and then build the project from right to left." That quote is about understanding what the end, having the end in mind, understanding what, who, when, how, and building it from that end backwards. And in so doing, through that master builder mentality, we're able to see the whole picture all at one time and create the properly aligned interrelationships. So, as I said, we've built this team very intentionally around that left brain approach. Competitive procurement with taxpayer dollars is sacred, and that is required by statute, and we must always hold ourselves to that standard. And the selection process for those contractors, developers, other things, has to represent all of the stakeholders and their constituencies. So we didn't want to presuppose any of this because we didn't involve any of those stakeholders. You lose trust that way, and we're going to talk at the end a little bit about trust. So our platform enables us to be an extension of staff, of your staff, to craft the delivery method and the assets and the team structure with all of the stakeholders, not just the city, that serves the taxpayer in the best, most streamlined way possible. Now again, we have all of these relationships. We know who these developers are with the right brain and the secret sauce around each of the types of asset, whether it's performing arts district or the entertainment or sports district. All of these districts have their own secret sauce, but we bring the secret sauce for the enabling piece that creates that. So the third topic is criteria for priority. I'm going to ask Karen with Gensler, who has been working with this master plan for some time.
For some time. Good afternoon. It's great to see most of you. I mean, all of you. Good to see most of you again. I'm Karen Krauskopf, and I'm with Gensler. I'm one of the global partners, but as many of you know, we're also local. And I've had the distinct privilege to work with many of you for over the last course of the 2 years. I represent the right brain of this project. So, but in going through and representing the right brain, it is about prioritizing not only the schedule, but what this project is and what it means to Waco. And so that's been the joy that we've had over the last couple years, is working with the community and working with city leaders to understand what is important, what is the priority. And this quote here is particularly impactful. It's think slow and act fast. And for us, that means from a planning perspective, think methodically. From a design perspective, think iteratively. And synthesizing those into your priorities for the project is really going to get you to the right schedule. Next slide. And our top priority for this project is creating that center of gravity that is Waco, that has a distinct emotional connection for Wacoans, for all of you. The bespoke destination projects will ripple out from this, but the center of gravity is your municipal complex that turns its face to the Brazos River, that engages it, that brings the green space in, a new vision for your Texas Town Square. This is the vision, and this in combination with the planning, which we'll get into a little bit more detail, I think, in topic 6. But this in combination with the planning is the secret sauce for what your city center for Waco, that's uniquely Waco, that ripples out to the other projects.
So I guess, in short, prioritization is a process. We have to bring a systems thinking approach to understand all the interdependencies and risks. And we typically start with a 3-day retreat where we use this book, How Big Things Get Done, as a platform to assemble those task teams, set the goals and objectives for the project, understand the interdependencies, and then set priorities with a roadmap for success. We will come out of that within the next 90 days, hopefully less, with a comprehensive strategic plan for each project, with the task team assignments using a financial model, all the tools we talked about, schedule, risk register, and communications plan that contemplates all of that and enables those goals and objectives. And I do want to make one point clear, because some of this got lost on Friday. Hunt has developed hundreds of thousands of multifamily units in master development communities. We've got 3 going on in Texas, or 4 going on in Texas right now. I don't mean to say this as saying this is only what we are going to bring capital and be a part of this development. But that secret sauce may be somebody else. And so we can't be a fiduciary if we just sort of presuppose that we can do it all, because that should be for the city to decide at the appropriate time. So topic 4 is the ideal finance strategy. This is a statistical truth that is in the book. 50% and they studied 16,000 projects, complex projects like this one. 50% finish on budget, 8.5% finish on time and on budget, and 1 in 200 finish on time, on budget, and with the expected benefits. The people and the process and the information that we're talking about changes those outcomes, and that's our secret sauce. So, first principles of infrastructure finance. Every dollar you spend on finance is a dollar less stuff you get. So our job is to figure out a way, even if it's a bridge, to get to the lowest cost of capital, because you do not want to spend any more money on financing than you have to. And so the goal is always to maximize tax-exempt debt where it can be on everything you can use it on. The other thing that in first principles is that risk drives the cost of capital. Rating agencies are very good at understanding where the risks are and notching the rating accordingly. So our job is to give the very best answers to those rating agencies so that we lower the cost of capital as much as possible. The beauty of this delivery method is that we're able to provide better risk transfer solutions than any other delivery method for these kind of projects, and that is our specialty. And one of the things that's so important is that when you over-transfer risk doesn't go away just because you lob it over the fence. It only moves the needle when you eliminate it, and that's what Hunt does every day. So the question was about give a financing plan. The way we see it is funding is an input, financing is an output. So for us to provide the output, we've got to be very thorough and strategic around creating the highest credit quality inputs so that we can structure the outputs in a way that creates value for the taxpayer. And the timing and credit quality of those funding sources, i.e. the inputs, allows us to optimize that output and provide the business case for council to understand not only what you're doing, but why you're doing it and why that creates value for your constituents. If private equity or subordinated debt are required, that's risk capital. That means that the investment grade debt can only be provided if there is risk capital involved as a subordinated debt or subordinated capital stack. And our job, and the reason why we're different than some of our competition, is we want that bucket to be as low as possible. We are completely agnostic on whether or if we provide equity or sub-debt. We want you to see the solution that provides the highest credit quality finance structure. So this is the roadmap to the financing, and the strategy may not look that much different. I mean, this is generally the course that you would undertake independently to do something. The difference here is that we bring all of the best minds to the table as early as possible. We have worked with your FAs, we've worked with your bond counsel, we know these people, we know every project, why it's been successful or why it hasn't been. We know what the Attorney General is saying, we know what lenders are saying, we know what rating agencies are saying, because that's what we do every day. We bring all of that early on, engage them, figure out what's got to have voter approval, very strategically craft that so that the voter sees the value in what we're doing. We develop the financial models for each project and then an overall model, and then we go back to the rating agencies and make sure we got it right. And then we refine them. But one of the most important things that we do is we prepare all of those financing documents and all of the project agreements sufficiently in advance so that we're not asking, we're telling. And we're telling the credit markets, we're telling people what it is we're doing, why we're doing it, and the framework that is going to create the best value for the taxpayer. And of course, everything has to obtain city council approval before we go forward to financial close. So the fifth question was, what was our most challenging project? Obviously, we have lots of challenging projects, but the one that probably translates best is the Travis County Courthouse. This is a snippet from the past performance evaluation from the project leader for Travis County. The past performance evaluation is in your statement of qualifications packet. I encourage you to go look at that and look at the feedback we achieved on that project. But some analogies is Travis County had failed a bond referendum and was treading water for 3 years, and they decided they needed to go with a different delivery method to get the certainty of getting that courthouse done by the end of 2022. Same delivery method that we're undertaking here. Many of the same team members. Winstead was opposing counsel across the table representing the county. Gensler was our architect. The post-mortem on that project was we delivered it 2 years faster and 20% lower cost than the county could have done on its own. We only used $240,000 of our contingency and returned $6 million back to the county to incorporate into the project. The other thing about that project is we saw the gravity phenomenon we talked about earlier. Because that project went into what was typically, somewhat of a blighted neighborhood in Northwest Austin, there's already been 3 developments that were catalyzed to that project. because they saw it there and they saw the gravity that was happening, but it wouldn't have been there if it hadn't been for that project. The sixth topic that you asked us to address was which component of the guidebook that Gensler generated is most important for the success. So I'm going to let Karen address that.
Well, thank you. And the quote up here talks about a good plan applies both experience and experimentation. And at Gensler, we've designed some of the most successful, impactful, and popular, if you will, mixed-use developments. This one is unique in that it overlays the design vision of a city, of its citizens. And so we worked extensively with your community to understand what's important to be there, what's important to not be there. And we hear multi-generational, we hear accessing the Brazos River, we hear about home. And so creating home is what the design vision. That part of it too, the design vision is critical. And so there's more time to refine the design vision, but we feel like that's the critical guiding principle. But it has to work in tandem with planning in order to have an enduring design vision. I'm going to tell a brief story about a central utility plant. And whether it's a central utility plant or it's a VRF system or something else, like a chilled beam system, it's about planning. You need to have the two work together in tandem from the very beginning. We have an institutional client that we still work with, and about 15 years ago, they said, we want to put our central utility plant here because we think we're going to have X capacity. That turns out to be right in the middle of the most valuable real estate on this campus. And so to this day, we're designing around it. And we don't want to let that happen here in Waco. So whatever the most resilient solution, whatever the most ease of maintenance, ease of programming, flexible solution, that has to work with the design vision. And that's why we're here as the right brain to the left brain, the yin and the yang. So these are the most important components in the guidebook, is getting your design vision of who you are and who you want to be in the future, along with planning for that.
So last and most important is topic 7, and that's how we are going to address our public engagement. And with that, I'll let you hear from Joel Allison, who's going to lead our PR task team.
Thank you, Rodney, and good afternoon, everyone. I think you all know on a project of this scope and size, public engagement is absolutely essential. Public relations, communications, planning, and this endeavor is important, perhaps as technical, financial, and legal aspects of the project, but to manage perhaps the biggest risk of all is political risk. And I am excited to be a part of this team. On a personal note, I am a fellow Wacoan. My wife and I moved permanently to Waco in 2016, and we intentionally moved downtown. I live in District 2, I live in a historic building, and I live in a PID. So I have a real interest in watching the continued development and economic development and vibrancy of Waco. But it is essential that we have a very good communications PR plan. We will work closely with the city staff to develop that plan. As Rodney mentioned, we will have the 3-day retreat. Out of that will come a communications plan that is timely, it is going to be very transparent, and it will be trusted. We believe to be proactive rather than reactive. And we want to anticipate questions before they're asked and have the answers, because this is something that people are going to ask every day, all constituents, all members of this community, what does this mean to me? And we want to have a very robust plan so that we're more or less, what I like to say, playing offense, we're not playing defense.
And then we thought we'd have Jed Walker talk about sort of the local value proposition for us.
Thank you, Rodney. Well, this project is at least a 100-year legacy vision. And because of that, we've got to get it right. At the end of the day, we believe that it's trust coupled with great leadership and strong relationships that's going to be able to bring this project, this vision, into a reality. And because of this reason, we chose to be on Hunt's team. We trust them, and we trust their leadership. They're master developers, and they have a proven track record of delivering large-scale civic projects, civic places that work. And that's extremely important to us. And I believe I speak on behalf of our team of local design professionals and general contractors when I can say that we are 110% committed to the city of Waco and committed to your all's vision and to the success of your all's vision, because this is our home. And we certainly hope that during our daily endeavors and working with you all, we've earned your trust, because today you're going to get to select the team that you all trust to deliver this project to you. Thanks. Rodney?
So I have 3 minutes and 40 seconds to close, and I'd like to just do that after Q&A if that's okay.
Any questions?
Thanks for the presentation, great job. I'm probably going to ask these same questions each of the four. And it really has to do with, we're just RFQing it at this point. We're not looking at the project and trying to figure out what details are in it. But can you point to a similar project that Hunt has worked on? I know that you pointed out some kind of single standing, I'll have to go back here, the family courts facility, which is not as,
Right.
We're talking about a whole
Right.
area, 60 acres that we're trying to figure out what to do with it. And I'll do the homework on it if you can just tell me which one is.
Well, I'm going to give you
sort of
some
similar.
examples. It's by no means exhaustive, but for example, we're the largest provider of housing to the federal government. We have 60,000 military homes that we own and operate, and we are creating communities around those military bases, like at our base at Hill Air Force Base in Utah. We're master developing 700 acres of residential, office, hotel, food and beverage, all of those things on federal land as the fiduciary to the federal government under what's called an enhanced use lease. We have 2 master developments in El Paso, 2 in Austin, where we're developing master plan communities with all the civic assets. But in terms of developing a town square, there's nothing perfectly on point for that. We know the value of town squares, and we know that each of those civic assets creates that gravity. And so, that's what I'm saying. In terms of the left brain and the right brain, we believe there are specialty developers for the entertainment district, for the residential, that have that secret sauce. We don't come just sort of presupposing all that. We've got to be very careful and intentional of figuring out what needs to be built when and what's creating the best value for the taxpayer. Then we bring those people in because they want to bring their capital and invest when that certainty is established.
Great. What do you see as the most challenging part of this particular
Well,
track?
we've sort of divided those challenges in 3 buckets. One is the finance challenge, because there's never enough money to do this, and we understand the finance aspects of trying to do all of this stuff, and we got to get it right. The second is the technical around just sort of the enabling infrastructure. Is it a chilled water loop? Is it how do we do this so that it's totally resilient in the future? And then the PR challenges. We know the history with Waco that we've had with some of these false starts and failures, and the citizens have to see the value in this partnership, and they have to see the value in why they're replacing a perfectly good convention center, and the value in why a ballpark is a catalyst that tax dollars should get behind. So there's 3 buckets of those challenges. I can dive into every one of them, but we've got them listed out, and they're already in our sort of risk register that we've got started. So.
Another piece of it is phasing, making sure that we phase it so that you don't have assets going down.
Yeah, you don't disrupt. I mean, the phasing is going to be critical.
That was actually be my next question on because you identified the 6 kind of giant projects, and that's not even probably touching half of what we want this thing to become.
Right.
Right.
But yeah, I think phasing is super important, not only from a just structural, what it looks like, but also from the funding aspect of how this.
Right. I mean, parking is going to be a challenge, right? If you're going to create this density, you got to get that. Particularly if you want it underground and everything to be bought on top of it, you got to you got to do that thing that's not too sexy at first, but you got to figure it out. So phasing is critical.
All right, thanks, guys.
Really appreciate the presentation, guys. It was very thorough. I'm sure there are a lot of words, especially in the financing aspects, that Jim understands that I don't, and I'm looking forward to convening with him after this. My question for you guys, because frankly, you answered most of any preset ones I would have during a presentation, is just, and all of you can take a stab at answering it. You can, let just one person take this. But why is this? Imagine financing was secured and no one was getting paid on this. Why is this project something that enticed you? Why is this something that you guys wanted to throw your hat in the ring for?
I would like to take that from the Gensler perspective.
Go right ahead.
We're after experience working here and being here, and some of my partners as well, whose families are from here. We are absolutely passionate about the potential of this city, about that critical mass, and about creating this vital place that can grow in its own identity. You don't want to be Austin, that's for sure. But we're passionate about that. We're passionate about creating home for Wacoans.
I'll just echo some of what Oxbow said. It's very rarely in our careers, particularly as civic developers, to see a blank canvas like this. And, if that's your core purpose, you don't pass these up. You have to be a part of that. It's a labor of love for us to help the city figure this out. And, we know those statistics of 1 in 200, and we consider it just part of our DNA that we want to help you be successful.
My design partner's family is from here, and they were here in 1953 and before 1953, before the tornadoes. They know the fabric that was here. They know the vitality. It's part of their family legacy too. So we want to help. We're passionate about bringing that back.
Awesome. And I do want to say, I'm a Texas historian. I love Texas history. I know what this city was when Texas was at its infancy, and somehow along the way we've forgotten that. Second thing is, Waco is right in the middle of 20 million people, and there is, just by virtue of physics, this is going to be, a heart of something that people don't even yet understand, and we see that.
Yeah, Darius, I'd like to add, I grew up in Waco, and I'm a hometown Wacoan. And growing up when Austin Avenue was closed, if you can imagine that, and there was AstroTurf where the street is, and there were no people. There were none. Everybody had moved out after the tornado and moved to the suburbs. And then 20 years ago, when I started Walker Partners, I chose to go downtown. And if you can believe this or not, 20 years ago, it was hard to find a place to go eat lunch downtown. Now look at it. We have really come a long way. And for me, it's a huge honor. It is a legacy to be able to be a part of this. We want this to be successful.
Appreciate that. And then my only other question relates specifically to something that you mentioned. Specific to the book that you referenced a lot, How Big Things Get Done. The first big pull quote you mentioned was, projects don't go wrong, they start wrong. Do you have any, from a development group perspective, if not yourself personally, instances for your team where you can look back and identify, hey, this thing failed because it started wrong? Do you have any projects that you can point to as a failure that you've identified, as a way to not repeat going forward?
That journey is littered with dead bodies, unfortunately. You look at some of these places like Bee Cave. I hate to throw people on the bus, but you look at some of these developments that weren't just quite right. They didn't spend the time and the, get that collaborative effort with that vision right. And you can't fix something that is structurally not right. She talked about the UT project with the central, sorry, shouldn't have said that. The project with the central plant in exactly the wrong spot because they didn't do it with the end in mind.
Yeah.
There's literally, hundreds of projects that didn't get it right at the beginning, and then they suffered for decades or generations.
Well, I appreciate your commitment to making sure that that is not the case in the projects that you seek and the work that you do. So, thank you, guys.
Questions? Thank you guys so much for being here.
Is all this is Hunt stuff, right? This stack?
Yes.
Is that right,
Yes.
Bradley?
Those are, the larger prints are the boards that we had up at the interview on
I don't know
Friday.
if it was sequential and there was, I
That's
didn't
us,
see, I
too.
didn't see the brand.
Yeah, those are the boards that we had at the staff presentation on Friday. We just didn't want to leave them out, but we also knew it would be hard to put in here. So those are just visioning boards.
Great.
So in closing, we're honored and privileged to be here, and we just are, extremely positive about what is happening here, and we just hope to be a part of it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys. Appreciate y'all. Turn back over to Tom.
Tom, would it be wrong to ask for just a quick coffee break?
In fact, this is a great time for a coffee break. We've got 10 minutes budgeted to take a step away, get a drink, use the restrooms. We will reconvene with Trammell Crow Company in about 10 minutes.